All right, welcome. We thank you all for being here tonight. Once again, first in order is John Francis. You will have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Well, first, let me welcome everyone and thank you for inviting me to this forum. It's a pleasure being here. My name is John Francis, and there's some things that you need to know about me. The very most important thing, I'm a man of faith, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican, and it's in that exact order. Very important that you know that. My wife and I have lived in this district for over 20 years. We've been married for 27 years. We raised our 4 kids here. We worship here. We educated them here. This is our home. I didn't have to move into the district to run for this seat. I didn't have to change parties in order to run for the seat either. We're very proud to live here. You know, I didn't get into this race until our current representative, Mike Lang, who is a good man, he's a conservative, but he decided to get out of the race and not run for re-election, and it was only after that that I decided to get in. And that's another thing that's important for you to understand. I am a very committed, solid conservative. I've been a conservative Republican my entire life. I've had people ask me in the past, what are your legislative priorities? And to be perfectly honest, I think that's a little strange of a question. And the reason is that the Republican Party of Texas, the Republican Party of Texas has its priorities. They've made it very clear to each and every single one of the candidates that are on this stage. And I want to let you know that I intend, and I'm in agreement with the Republican Party platform. I'm very proud of that. And I want you to know that if you entrust me with your vote, that I will not only support, but I will advocate for those planks. There are 339 of them, and they're very important. I want you to know that Donald Trump has shown that there is a swamp in Washington, D.C., but I want you to also understand very clearly that there is a swamp that exists in Austin, and they have made their decision, the swamp in Austin. And I want to let you know that that candidate is not me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Next is Christopher M. Perricone.
Welcome, Patriots. My name is Christopher Perricone. You can find out more information at christopherfortexas.com. Trying to compress 3 minutes down to 2 minutes. It's going to be a little fun. A couple things I want you to think about. Since y'all have the most important job here is to evaluate us candidates, 2 things that I look at when I'm looking at my votes. Number 1, you need to elect someone that is going to adhere to the same values that you have. We all subscribe to the Republican platform, and just for the past decade, we've had the Republican House, Senate, and the gubernatorial, and yet we're not getting the Republican platform accomplished. So we need to find people that will actually do what they say they're going to do. So when you evaluate a tree, as I always use an example, you need to evaluate the fruit. What have they actually done? I'm the one candidate that stands up here that can actually not only exude and say that I'm a conservative, I've actually can show you how I've put to try and end abortion in the city of Mineral Wells. I've tried to not only vote to lower taxes, but to completely eliminate our property taxes. I've also put on there for term limits, so I can show you through a track record of conservatism. Number 2 thing, and this is really important, I want you to think about your votes in a little bit different way. Albert Einstein said that the greatest invention of mankind was compound interest. I want you to think about your vote. If you vote for one of us, which you will, who is it that's going to be influential when they go down to Austin or when they go to D.C.? Who is going to be able to influence those other reps to bring them over to our side to accomplish what our goals are? So as you're sitting up here evaluating men and women tonight, I want you to look at them because we're all going to say the same thing. We're all going to be the same tree with the Republican platform. But who is it that is going to be influential to go down and impact others? Like I said, my name is Christopher Perricone. You can find out a little bit about me online. I started college at 15. My father raised me by himself. I got all the way up to a master's degree. I'm an entrepreneur with multiple degrees. I also did 2 tours, combat tours. I was special ops in the military. And I'm the current mayor of Mineral Wells, Texas. I know how to get things done. If you want a fighter that's smart and effective, vote Christopher. Thank you.
Mr. Perricone, thank you very much. Our next candidate for State Representative District 60, Mr. Glenn Rogers.
Good evening. I appreciate the chance to visit with y'all. The future of our country and Texas depends on rural conservative values. I believe in the conservative values of limited government, both federal and state, and local control. To keep rural Texas and America strong, we must focus on the issues that face Brownwood each and every day: public education, health care, and jobs. I'm Dr. Glenn Rogers, and I want to represent you in the Texas House. My core beliefs, career, and broad leadership experience make me uniquely qualified for this position. I'm staunchly pro-life and an adamant defender of the Second Amendment. I'm opposed to all illegal immigration. I've been active in the traditional Methodist Church for over 50 years, and I'm immersed in God's grace. I'm a veterinarian and rancher in Palo Pinto County, where my family has ranched since the 1890s, and I've operated a ranch since 1980. My wife, Mandy, is also a veterinarian. I have 4 children, 5 grandchildren. I had a rural veterinary practice for 11 years. I was a university educator for 9 years, and then I was a consultant in the animal health business for 12 years. I served in leadership positions on the local, state, and national level. While I was serving as president of a national organization, that's when I decided that I wanted to defend rural Texas and represent rural Texas. If you look at the areas of greatest support for the president, for the Republican Party, it's in rural America. The future of this party, the ability to elect strong leaders, and the future of our great state depend on thriving communities like Brownwood, Texas. When elected, my top priority will always be to represent the underserved needs of this city, this county, and rural Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And our next representative, candidate, Kelly Sorrell.
Hello, I am Kelly Sorrell. I am an attorney in Granbury. I am married to Jeremy. We've been married for 17 years. We have 4 kids, twins that are 16, prayers appreciated. They just started driving. So, and then I have a 14-year-old son and a 13-year-old little girl. I am the candidate that's still full-time working. Kind of cut that back a little bit lately, which is pretty good, but I'll try not to be grumpy like it was in Palo Pinto County last time. I have a grandmother who is a retired school teacher. My brother was in the Army and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have a father-in-law that is retired law enforcement. Basically, my family is pretty much public servants, and I'm an advocate by trade. As far as my platform or my experience has primarily been working with, so I was also a prosecutor on the border. That's Cameron County, South Padre Island area. I was down there from the end of 2010 through the end of 2017 when we moved back up north, primarily because it's kind of a dangerous place. At night, we could sit on our back porch. We were about 5 miles from the border, and we could actually listen to artillery and things going on over in Matamoros. I am a strong advocate for border security and constitutional carry, and I'm definitely pro children, unborn. When pro-life to me is more than just the unborn. You've got a whole spectrum of life that deserves protection, and I hope you will support me, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sorrell. Okay, now we'll get to our first question of the night. This is for Mr. Francis. Working with other elected officials and building relationships is a vital part of serving in the House. How do you plan to effectively build relationships and coalitions with other House and Senate members from both parties to be an effective leader for your district?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for that. I would say that I have a strong belief that one man can make a huge difference. And I think that part of leadership is making sure that you're willing to go and stand up. You know, I've heard many people talk about, oh, we need a seat at the table. And quite frankly, I want to let you know that I don't have a white flag. I don't own a white flag, and I won't raise a white flag. Our values are worth fighting for, and I just strongly believe that one man can make a big difference. I get frustrated when we have priorities that the Republican Party of Texas, the delegates, have made extraordinarily clear what is important to the Republican Party of Texas. And quite frankly, often they get done with the session and they've ignored all of the priorities. The top 10 priorities pretty much got ignored last session. And I believe that it's important that we stand up and actually call this out. So I think that one man can make a difference, and the reality is that we need leaders. And I think leadership requires that you know, if needed, that maybe you're the only one standing. That's okay with me. I think that's a positive first step. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Perricone, working with other elected officials and building relationships about a part of serving. How do you plan to effectively build relationships and coalitions with other House and Senate members from both parties to be an effective leader for your district? 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
It's 2 minutes.
Great question, appreciate it. Uncompromising men are easy to follow. Sending someone down to Austin that is going to stand strong on the beliefs and the platforms that we share, and not only stand firm, but be able to articulate the reasons why they stand firm, will garner support. For example, take abortion, which was put on the agenda in the city that I'm current mayor of. It was put on the agenda in the 29th most conservative town in the state of Texas, and yet the council refused to even have a conversation. Why? They're fearful. I want to have men or women go down to Austin that are not fearful, that can say, you know what, this is why I stand for the little unborn. One, God's word, it's already settled that it's murder, but I'll leave aside the morality. Number two, I want to look at it and go, you know what, if someone murders a pregnant woman, they get 2 counts of murder. I also look at it and see state law says that in the state of Texas, it's actually illegal to have an abortion, just we choose not to enforce it because of Roe v. Wade. We took an oath as elected officials as mayor, and we'll take one when we go to state, that we're to uphold the Constitution. To make our cities in more alignment with the Constitution and God's Word is what we have said we will do. But in the 29th most conservative city in the state of Texas, they're not even willing to have the conversation. So the question is why? Fearful. Will you be more fearful of men or of your God that you serve? And I'm telling you that as a man that stands before you tonight, I will go down to Austin knowing that I work for you, y'all patriots that will elect me, but I also stand every night when I go to sleep before my Lord Almighty and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'll share one last thing if I can. Daniel, in the book of Daniel, was ordered to not pray. He stood up and said, I'm not going to compromise. I'm going to continue praying, and I'm going to open the window, let everybody see what I'm doing. And he was thrown into the lion's den because he did not back down. That's how you gain, and that's how you be a leader, and that's how you will gain a consensus down in Austin. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, for Mr. Rogers, same question. Working with other elected officials and building relationships, a vital part of serving the House. How do you plan to effectively build relationships and coalitions with other House and Senate members from both parties to be an effective leader for your district?
Well, governing requires trust and relationships. I've spent my entire career, or several careers that I've had, developing trust and relationships, and I know that I can do that when I go to Austin as well. Incremental positive change is much better than no change. And we've seen such a divided country, and we've seen issues where extremists have a position that is so far to the right or to the left that there's no chance it's going to get passed. And I believe you hold to your values, no question about that, but you also have to govern. And again, incremental positive change. An example of that is in the pro-life movement. Anything we can do to save lives, we want to do. But if we can save the lives of some unborn children, that's great. If we took such an extreme position that nothing was done, then we didn't really accomplish anything. So we have to govern. And that's what I'm about, is relationships and trust, not compromising my values, but working with people. We need more of that in Austin. We need more of that in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And for Ms. Sorrell, the question to you, how do you plan to effectively build relationships and coalitions with other House and Senate members from both parties to be an effective leader for your district?
As an attorney, we spend the majority of our career working with others, working on behalf of parties, working with agencies, working with courts and court staff. I have always understood that you kill people with kindness. You try to get along. You never get anywhere when you gripe, yell, otherwise. If you find me looking at the soon-to-be Honorable Mr. Smith, it's probably because I'm used to talking to a judge, so I'll just continue to acknowledge him down there. The whole, you work together, but in 2017, I was the Prosecutor of the Year in Cameron County, and I earned that because I stood for what was right. So even though you're supposed to work well with others, you should work well with others, and respect them, respect their opinions, I have no problem doing what is right. And I earned that award because even though I was going against the popular opinion, I advocated what was right and did what I had to do. So I have no problem standing firm. I have no problem fighting the good fight. And there was another one. So in Hood County last year, when we all got our tax bills and we saw that the property taxes were incredibly high, our firm actually organized a little seminar so that we could get the people together, and we did this free of charge, and then it was to assist them with going through the tax forms and learning how to put together the protest form. And I even offered and met with many people after that, helping them actually build their packets. I have no problem doing the hard work. I have no problem, receiving little or no pay doing it. I was a government attorney for a long time, so trust me. But I thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll start back at the top of the list here. John Francis. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to start with Mr. Francis. What is your stance on supporting public education, especially related to a possible school voucher, school choice program?
Well, I'm absolutely in favor of public education. I am a supporter. My daughter is actually here tonight. She's a senior at Cisco High School. We have one of the best high schools and ISDs in the state. Very proud of that. I think the one thing that we can do to support our public schools, the very first thing we need to say is that we need to bring prayer in a major way back to our public schools. And I feel that's very important. And I believe that most of our problems in this society started when we took prayer out of public school. I think it's a critical thing that we must do to get that back in school. I want to say this. It's important that we get the funding, and this is really what this question is about, it has to do with funding. We need to get the funding back to the actual teachers and back to the actual students in the classroom. That's so critical. There was a period of time when the ratio of teachers to students was 5 to 1, and now I take that back. It was 1 administrator to 5 teachers. Nowadays, it's 2 administrators for every 1 teacher, and I think it's something that we need to refocus. We need to get the funding back to the classroom, and we need to get rid of the high stakes testing. The bottom line is that school is for the purpose of making citizens that are self-productive, that are productive citizens, and that won't go on to the welfare rolls. That is a primary function of our school system. And we need to get back to that. And I believe that we've lost our way in many cases. And I think that we need to get rid of the high stakes testing. I've never met a teacher yet that was in favor of it, and certainly not a student. Thank you.
Mr. Perricone, your stance on supporting public education, especially related to possible school voucher, school choice program.
Thank you. I'm uniquely qualified to answer this question. I've been in the public school, the private school, homeschool, and I've actually got to play sports at one of the private schools. So in short, I'm going to start with a survey that I was told about years ago. They surveyed thousands of people, and they were trying to answer number one question. What determines success for our children when they graduate? What determines success? Education, money, family, so forth, so on. The number one thing, most of y'all can probably guess, is having a mother and father in the home. The importance of that cannot be understated. It is so critical that the mother and father in the home. Number two, I'm not going to tell you just yet. Number three was money. Number four was education, which is where this question is. You don't know where number two was? Back to the family. It's how many meals those children had at the dinner table every week. There's something dynamic that happens when you communicate with your children around the dinner table that instills values that cannot be taught in the schools. So to answer your question, number one, I believe that we've got to find a way to bring faith back in with prayer, just as John had talked about. We've got to get our parents more involved in their children's education. I'm completely for public education. I think that there's parents that cannot homeschool their children. They just don't have the means and the ability to. So I'm for all types of education we can. I think the funding should be pulled back to the state level. I think that the federal government should have no business in that. It should be controlled at the lowest level possible. I think that the evaluation methods that are currently used in our schools, whether it's the STAR test or the standardized test, we have to, there's different metrics for determining what is successful children, just as I talked about them having meals. We need to revamp. I don't think any of us have the complete answer. I think I would love to sit down with people in this district and talk with the different administrators saying, hey, is money getting stuck in the administration portion and not getting to the teachers? We need to look at everything and revamp it. I don't think any of us have the right answer, but we can find the right answer by sitting down and talking about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Perricone. Mr. Rogers, your stance on supporting public education related to possible school voucher, school choice program.
Okay, thank you. I want to actually answer the question. I'm opposed to school vouchers, and I'll tell you why. I support school choice. Certainly there's public education is going to educate the vast majority of our students, and that's where we need to focus. But there's a role for private schools. There's a role for homeschools, and I appreciate that. But the reason that I oppose vouchers is because I think that it would be damaging to our rural schools. And first and foremost, when I make a decision, the litmus test I use is how does it affect Brownwood, how does it affect Coleman, how does it affect the small rural communities? And I think vouchers, that whole system has more of a detrimental effect in rural communities. So I would oppose the voucher system. I'm a product of public education. I've served on the school board. I've been a university educator. I'm very pro-education. That's my number one platform for how I'm going to deal with improving rural communities. You know, rural communities without good public education just don't do very well. We have to have strong educational programs, and we have to get behind our teachers and help them every way we can. On the same note, we have to be efficient, and there's certainly areas that need to be changed. I'm opposed to the STAR test. It needs to be at least greatly reduced, if not eliminated, and it's causing too much angst amongst our students and our teachers. We have third graders that are getting test anxiety. That's just not acceptable. We have teachers teaching to the test, so we've got to do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Sorrell, your stance on supporting public education, especially related to a possible school voucher, school choice program.
Okay, I'm absolutely pro-parents' choice on anything. But I will say that I am absolutely for building the best public school education system that we possibly can. As far as the alternatives, charter schools, private schools, and my only concern is that they need to be accountable and transparent and make sure that the money that they receive is applied to actually educating the kids. I saw in South Texas cases where they would pop up with a charter school, and then it would be there for a few months, then disappear because it'd run out of funding and the money would be gone. So I oppose basically anything that can be abused as far as the system's concerned. And with that being said, that kind of goes along with my position on vouchers. I think if vouchers are giving people an opportunity to grab some cash, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the kids will go to school and or attend a homeschool or have a homeschool program or attend a school. I think also, as far as vouchers are concerned, I think there's a huge concern with how to divvy the funds if you have a child that changes enrollment. So I'm not really sure how that would work out. So I'm kind of opposed to vouchers. As far as the school system, standardized testing in the schools, Texas has more tests than are required under the federal mandates. I oppose that continued practice and would like to see less testing in the schools. I'd like to see some tax reform for the M&O tax on our tax bills, and I would like to see a cost of living increase for Texas retired teachers.
All right, we're going to alternate the order this time, and we'll just go from bottom to top. And Ms. Sorrell, you're back up again. And the question, how do you plan to help protect the interests and lifestyle of rural Texas related to topics such as water, economic development, taxes, and government regulations?
I was waiting for the clock to pop up. There it is. Okay, so as far as economic development, I would like to continue utilizing some of the forms that are already in place. Although while I've been visiting with different communities in District 60, I have learned that people have concerns with some of the foundations and the organizations in the cities that allow for people to take advantage of some monetary cash flow that's hanging out, and make sure that if we could have some security, that it would be evenly distributed, I think would maybe, I guess, public corruption, but I like the idea of having the economic development groups. As far as property taxes, I absolutely would love to see some reform. I think it's Stafford, Texas, is the one that replaced their city tax with the sales tax and have been successfully doing so for over 20 years. I'd like to see that continued, and just try to make resources available to attract businesses to rural Texas and make sure that they have access to adequate medical care. I know hospitals are a big issue. I have a friend who's an attorney who is an EMT and also an attorney, and he said one of the concerns for rural Texas, and I've seen this as an attorney, is that the hospitals don't necessarily provide the same level of care that you can get in the larger cities. And I would like to make sure that we have resources for primary doctors and basic care in your communities so that you aren't having to be transported, or have a transport service available to get you to the larger communities where the specialists and things like that are. But I, would also like to make sure that people have quick access to hospitals with top of the level care.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sorrell. Lynn Rogers is up next. How do you plan to protect the interests and lifestyles of rural Texas related to topics such as water, economic development, taxes, and government regulations?
Okay, well, let me start with economic development. I'm fortunate to be closely associated with Mineral Wells, Texas, and that's a good example of what can happen with vision and people working together to create opportunities in a community. And Mineral Wells is headed towards being a destination city for tourism. Now, not every city in District 60 can be a destination city for tourism, but every community has something unique that they can build on. And I've been seeing some exciting things around the district. Since I started looking at this, running for this office back in the late summer of this past year, I've been visiting city and counties and economic development people all over the district. And what I'm seeing is there are some really exciting things going in some places and not so much in others. But there's some federal opportunities from Trump's tax bill to opportunity zones that are being utilized in Mineral Wells. I think here in Brownwood, you have opportunity zone opportunities as well. And so from an economic development standpoint, you really have three options for rural communities. You can either raise taxes, nobody wants to do that. You can reduce services, or you can have an economic development program and increase the tax base of that community. Rural communities are either growing or they're dying. And I very much believe that the future of America depends on thriving rural communities, and we have to do everything we can to keep growing and building so our children and our grandchildren can stay in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Carricone is next.
Just trying to steal those extra 15 seconds. All right. I think I'm uniquely qualified to answer this question, but you can go and repeat it one more time for everybody.
All right, how do you plan to protect the interest and lifestyle of rural Texas related to topics such as water, economic development, taxes, and government regulations?
Excellent question. Whoever wrote that question, good job. Number one, so Brownwood, early, God, my time already started. Early in Brownwood, and I'm the current mayor of Mineral Wells, so I know Rogers had mentioned being on track with Mineral Wells, but I differ from Mineral Wells' approach to economic development. There is a changing of the guard, a changing of times with technology, and the way we need to do economic development is not focusing on trying to bring a bunch of businesses here by using our hard-earned taxpayer dollars to incentivize them to come here. We need to change our approach and go, you know what? Let's start making our town the greatest place to live through quality of life improvements and put our money that we're paying into it to make our town great so that when it's a great town, people will automatically move into that town. Entrepreneurship will actually, and small businesses will trump any of the other type of economic developments, and I'll prove in one point. New York City was spending $3 billion to bring Amazon to them for 25,000 jobs. If you go and take that same number and you switch over to Kansas City, who has 500,000 jobs, every 7 years, Kansas City with 500,000 citizens, they will create almost 50,000 new jobs through economic development, and it costs them this much incentive. Would you rather spend this much and take our taxpayer dollars, such as here in Early and Brownwood, and start focusing on our citizens, instead of trying to spend our money to entice the tourists to come here, and then in 20 years, then we can start focusing on our citizens that are here? I think that's backwards. We need to focus on the locals here. And I was talking with the city manager in Early as well as the Chamber of Commerce here in Brownwood, and I believe y'all are doing things right. I think y'all are trendsetters in what is going to be across the city with moving to MDDs. Instead of an economic development center like we have in Mineral Wells. So I would love to take lead and point on this and show how economic can be done, because that will affect all of our taxes and lower them.
Thank you. Mr. Carricone? And Mr. Francis, how do you plan to help protect the interest and lifestyle of rural Texas related to topics such as water, economic development, taxes, and government regulations?
You know, these forums are so important because they give you an opportunity to kind of get a glimpse into the soul of the people that are before you, the choices that you have. I want to make it very clear. Government is not the answer. I'm in favor of less government and more freedom. And across the board, I'm in favor of the free market. I'm opposed to government picking winners and losers. You know, so often we talk about economic development like as if the government is the one that's creating the economic development. It's ridiculous and it's false and it's not true. It's individuals that if you had the opportunity to keep more of your money, you would be able to start a business. You would be able to actually thrive. But with a high rate of taxation, it makes that much more difficult. So across the board, I'm in favor of more freedom and less government. And I'm a proponent. I'm not just a supporter of the free market. I'm an advocate, and I think it's super important that we have a change of mindset. Think about any other, I should say, every single aspect of government. Ask yourself if they do a better job than the free market, and the answer is no. They don't do anything better. Would you rather go to a private restroom or a public restroom? Would you rather go to a private school or a public school? Would you rather go to, I mean, the list is just absolutely endless. So I want to make it very clear. I'm a free market guy, and I'm 100% for economic development, not when government is involved. They do a terrible job only at every single thing they do.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. We'll start next with Mr. Rogers. Redistricting will be an important topic in the 87th legislative session. How do you see redistricting affecting District 60 and Brown County?
Well, right now, there are more state representatives in the Houston metro area, Harris County, than there are west of I-35. We only have about 19 state representatives currently that represent us. And so it's extremely important that those of us that are representing rural districts work together. I talked earlier about trust and relationships, and that's how you govern. That's my specialty. I look forward to building a coalition of rural representatives to represent us here in rural Texas, and it's going to be extremely important when we get to redistricting, because we're not going to have 19 state representatives. We may only have 17. And so it's going to be absolutely essential that we work together. That's kind of a novel concept, isn't it, in Austin and Washington? But we've got to work together, and especially we have to have that rural coalition. And I plan to build that, not by myself. I've already established relationships with almost every state representative that's in a rural area. I have endorsements from about 2/3 of them already. We're going to have a coalition, and we're going to represent rural Texas. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Barracone.
Thank you. Question again?
Question is redistricting, an important topic in the 87th legislative session. How do you see redistricting affecting District 60 in Brown County?
To be honest, I don't know how it's actually going to affect us. I know the solution to it, though. The solution, no matter which way it goes on the redistricting, is to let people that are influential that will go down to Austin and bring other people onto our side so that we are being effective with our votes. There's a story I'd asked the Lord about on my way to my first forum about how to communicate to the people, and he reminded me of David when he was a shepherd boy, before he was king, and I'm probably giving you fits having to walk around, sorry about it. When David was a shepherd boy, the Israelites were being mocked by Goliath, and the Israelites, the whole army was terrified of Goliath because he was so big. They would shake in their boots, and little old shepherd boy David comes up there, and I do have a point with, I'm going to make this. He goes, and he was so upset with this Goliath mocking his people and mocking his God, and that he said, I'll fight him. I'll stand up. I won't compromise. I'm not going to back down. And so after some time, they allowed him to go fight it because no one else would stand up. And so we're talking about how this redistricting will affect us. We need to send people and not worry about the redistricting. We need to send men that are like little shepherd boy David that say, I don't care how big that Goliath is. I will go and fight him, and I will stand strong and destroy him. And he picks up 5 stones. I'll share this as well. First stone he picks up, it's not because it was a bad shot. He was an excellent shot. He killed lions and tigers and bears. He picked up 5 stones because David knew that Goliath had 4 more brothers that were going to be taken out in the rest of his life. With that first shot, he took and fell Goliath. I believe that down in Austin right now, that Goliath that is mocking us as a Republican Party, that's mocking our platform, that's mocking our beliefs, is the taxpayer-funded lobbies. And no matter how districting goes, we send a man or woman down there that will effectively sling that stone and fell that giant. All the other items on our docket, such as constitutional carry, abortion, those will be taken care of. So no matter how redistricting goes, we need to focus on sending the men and women today that are before you, someone that is very influential, that will be impactful and bring those other people in so we can get our platform accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barracone. And Mr. Francis? Redistricting, an important topic in the 87th legislative session. How do you see redistricting affecting District 60 in Brown County?
You know, it comes down to, well, here's the truth. First of all, no one knows exactly how this is going to go with the redistricting. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, and neither do any of the other candidates that are before you. But I think it's very critical that you understand the core principles that we each have, and how will we deal with any of the issues that we have, whether it's redistricting or any other issue that comes before the legislature. And again, I want to make sure that you understand that I am a fighter. I'm a solid conservative. I'm an open book. I want everyone here to know that, they give us 2 minutes here this evening to answer questions like this, but I want you to know that, I'm willing to answer any question that you have. The reality is sometimes we have to stand up in here and say, I don't know. But I will tell you this, whatever I do, I will be a conservative fighter for you. You know, this district is one of the most conservative districts in the entire state. It's part of the reason that my wife and I love living here, because it is so conservative. And I want to let you know that my principles are going to define exactly how I act and how I fight. And once again, I'm willing to stand up and fight for our values. And I will do so to the best of my ability, even if I'm the only one standing. And that's how I would answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Ms. Sorrell, redistricting. How do you see redistricting affecting District 60 in Brown County?
Okay, so redistricting is done based off of a persons per capita kind of thing. It's a numerical equation. And I have looked at the projections for this next cycle, and it looks like we don't get split up. It looks like we all stay together. That's based off what I've seen on the preliminary maps. I am experienced in digging through legal, bureaucratic, regulatory documents. I think I do a pretty good job. I am not only a God-fearing woman, but I am also a very ethical and moral individual. I'm a strict constitutionalist, and that means I love justice and fairness. And anything about me going in there, I will make sure that we are properly represented, but I will also make sure that the rest of the districts in this state are taken care of in a just and fair fashion. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Perricone, we're changing questions here. If elected, what would your plan or strategy be to offer accessibility to your constituents, especially related to possible field offices?
To what bonuses?
Field offices?
Okay.
Oh, having a field office maybe in a community like you're in Brown?
Okay, can you ask that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay. If elected, what would your plan or strategy be to offer accessibility to your constituents, especially
Thank you.
related to possible field offices?
Okay, yes, sorry, thank you. Good question. Glad to be amongst patriots tonight. So, as mayor, I'm current mayor of Mineral Wells, Texas, and one thing I learned that I did very poorly the first year was I didn't communicate enough and used all the mediums that we have at our disposal to be communicating with constituents. Recently, I've been taking to Facebook because it's the only way to get information directly from me to the citizens, and that's proven to be very effective. There's another congressional district, I think it's actual Casey. I don't know where Casey Gray went, but he has a similar suggestion. I'm going to steal some of his because I think this is a good idea. In our 8 counties, I like the idea of what Casey proposed, where you can take and have one representative, whether it's at the field houses, that is representing the people, that is a communication, like a liaison between the constituents and coming to me. The other option that I would like to do as well is to set up and have meetings where it's probably every other month, where it's a set time in every county saying, hey, if y'all want to speak with the state rep, you can meet him at whatever place it is from 6 to 8 o'clock. And it's just a simple open Q&A, and it's an opportunity for me to listen and hear what's going on in the district. I think beyond that, using all the mediums of technology we have is so critical, and I've learned the value of being able to do that right now. Because what's happening right now in our country, and even on the local side, is the newspapers and these other media outlets are pushing a biased agenda. And it's agenda that's working against you. It is not for you, because they're chasing something different than what you're chasing. You're chasing liberty, and they're chasing the dollar. So I believe that by going away from those and going directly to the constituents through technology is one of the first ways. Number two is setting up and having consistent scheduled meetings. And then number three, setting up a representative as a liaison that can even come down and stay with Austin when we're in session, so that I have someone in my ear every time from each county. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Perricone. Mr. Francis will be up next. If elected, what would your plan or strategy be to offer accessibility to your constituents, especially related to possible field offices?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, when I first decided to make the run for this office, I made the decision that I was going to put my cell number on all of my campaign literature. And by the way, I want to let you know that my cell number is the same phone number that my wife uses and that my children use when they're trying to reach me. And you have that number. It's on all of my campaign literature. So it literally is a direct method that you can call me or text me, and I'm happy to answer the phone. I do answer the phone. Many of you have called, and I've taken the time, and if I haven't been able to answer the phone, maybe I'm on the phone already, but I do return the phone call. And so I think it's a really important concept to make sure that we're open with you. And that's why I decided to do that, because I expect that you have questions about me. I'm new at this. I've never run for office before. And so obviously you might have questions about what positions that I have. And so I want to make that clear. But the most important reason that I put my cell number on all my literature is this. I'm expecting that you will hold me accountable. So I'm telling you exactly what I stand for. I write it down. I literally wrote my own campaign literature. And I believe it. It's who I am. It's not something that someone wrote for me. So I want you to know that if you entrust me with your vote, I will do exactly what I say I'm going to do. But again, I'm expecting that you'll hold me accountable. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Sorrell, that question for you, if elected. What would your plan or strategy be to offer accessibility to your constituents, especially related to possible field offices?
Okay, as to field offices, I am not 100% certain what the budgetary allotments are, or how many exactly currently exist. I know we have one over in Grayberry. I know there's one in Eastland. Don't know if there's one here under Lane. I don't. Are there? Yes? Okay. But wherever, I think you should probably try to make sure that those are kind of evenly distributed, even if that's not necessarily in my hometown. But, you know, we've kind of got a big district, so it's kind of difficult. But I know this, that as a representative, I have a strong belief that not only should you be accessible to cities, counties, ISDs, PDs, Sheriff's Office, you know, all the governmental agencies that we, you know, are used to being kind of the people that navigate the waters. But I also think it's really important that you, as a representative, are available to the people so that you can hear their concerns or help address any issues that may be ongoing. And I will say that I have never, ever been one to back down from a crisis, even if it was inconvenient. For example, when I was at the DA's office, I had no issue getting up in the middle of the night and dragging judges and clerks with me so that we could, you know, try to make sure we had an order in place to prevent the removal of life support from an infant that was born as a result of an attempted abortion. So I have no problem doing what I've got to do to make sure everybody's needs are met and rising to the challenge and being available. Kind of like with my clients, I actually give everybody a cell phone number so that anybody can get a hold of me whenever they need me. I'm not going to guarantee that, you know, 2 a.m. drunk calls work, but, you know, I am available when I can be.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrell. And for Mr. Glenn Rogers, your plan or strategy to offer accessibility to your constituents, especially related to possible field offices.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I didn't enter this race just a few weeks ago. I've been working hard throughout this district since late summer. And I can tell you, I have 2 campaign offices right now, one in Brownwood and one in Mineral Wells. And I can promise you that one of my offices, when I'm elected, will be here in Brownwood, Texas. I can promise you that. As far as accessibility, to be accessible, you have to know the people in the district. And I've been disappointed when I've been with, I can name 3 or 4 superintendents that told me I was the first representative that they, or representative candidate they had met. So there's a lot of unmet needs out there. But we've been through every nook and cranny of this district. We've been in every county numerous times. We're going to be launching a lot of our endorsements soon. I have many counties where I have every commissioner is endorsing me, towns with every city council member endorsing me. It's because we've been out there working, meeting these people, and we will be accessible. I'm the accessibility candidate. That's what I'm about. I'm going to be listening and trying to figure out what we need to do in Austin. And once I'm elected, that won't stop. I'll continue to be accessible. I'll have regular meetings with city and county officials all across this district. And I look forward to that. It's been a lot of fun for me to get to meet just such wonderful people, many here in Brownwood and all the other communities across the district. So accessibility, I like that. That fits my MO, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And we have, I believe, one last question that we have time for. We'll go from bottom to top, starting with Kelly Sorrell. Please discuss your campaign funding and how this may or may not affect your representation of your entire district.
Hey, watch this. My answer can be really quick on this one. It's pretty much me. I am majority of self-funded. Part of that's because I started interviewing with some PACs and things like that, and I started realizing it becomes a different thing. It's like a business. It's where you have expectations and I don't want to say your own, but I think there's just a feeling that you owe someone else an obligation, and I think there's an expectation from them that you absolutely go that way. So with that being said, there are a few friends that kind of jumped in to give me a little bit of money. My boss actually kind of helped me out. But otherwise, it's been me. And yeah, thanks.
All right. Mr. Rogers, please discuss your campaign funding and how this may or may not affect your representation of your entire district.
Well, thank you. We have done well on fundraising. We've done it the old-fashioned way. We've generated funds from throughout the district, a lot of different people. So far, the largest contributor to my campaign has been the Farm Bureau Ag Fund, and I'm very proud of that. And they might be like, it was mentioned earlier that the Texas lobby, I was their candidate. But I want you to know, many of you in this room, I don't know if you, how many of you in this room are members of Farm Bureau or you're farmers or ranchers? Okay. Well, I guess y'all are the evil Austin lobby that was referenced. So I'm proud to have contribution from the Texas Farm Bureau Ag Fund. Those are farmers and ranchers that make voluntary contributions, people from all over this district. I'm proud to have that. So funding is tough. I wish it wasn't that way. This may wind up being the most expensive rural district race in the history of Texas. And we're trying to keep up with our competitor, and we're doing a good job. But we'll never raise the money that's being raised. I don't have access to the wealthy families that my opponent does, but I do have a lot of friends throughout the district, and we've raised funding in every county. We've had meet and greets in every county. We had a very successful one last night in Albany. So funding is just one of those necessary evils of politics, and we'll just continue to work hard. And by the way, any of you that would like to contribute to my campaign, I'm certainly welcome to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Mr. Barrett Cohen, Please discuss your campaign funding and how this may or may not affect your representation of your entire district.
Yeah, simply it's not about the money, it's about the message. And while I don't have the campaign funds, I've been derelict in my duty in going and asking for funds. The book of James says you have not because you've asked not. I've been so busy with running the city as mayor, and then I also have a full-time job. In fact, nearly fell off a roof this morning because I was up there in my boots, and I decided that I need to go check on something. And so I'm running my roofing and construction company, and I've just not had the time that I should be putting into it. I've instead focused my time on praying and asking God to bless y'all and to bless me with the ability to communicate well, and prayerfully that y'all consider the message and the man or woman that y'all choose to send down to Austin. That being said, I do have every intention of hitting it hard. If there are people that would like to help out and set up some fundraisers, I desperately need that. And it's not just for this election. When someone asks me how much money are you looking for, I'm not looking at just the amount of money to win this race. I'm looking at what money can be used so that we can establish legislation that can be hitting the ground running as soon as you take office, so that I can have bills already written and presented because there was money to be spent. So I will get on that trail very soon. And I'll preface and say one thing too. When I ran for mayor, nobody gave me a chance. And I funded everything for myself, and I was not I think I was the second to lowest spender. And God did something really neat because I didn't accept any money from anybody, and I should have. God's working on me to be grateful about it. Until the very last one of the last moments, and one gentleman came in and actually supported me and filled up all the money that I had already spent. So bottom line is, I want everybody to think about the message that you're hearing from the individuals. And it's not about the money. If you're making it based upon the money, then I think it's foolhardy. Thank you. I'm Christopher.
All right, thank you, Mr. Perricone. Mr. Francis, discuss your campaign funding and how this may or may not affect your representation of your entire district.
I have, right this moment, as of last night, I have over 525 individual people that have given my campaign money, some of whom have given a lot of money, many of whom have given $5 or 10 or 15 or 25. My mother in Michigan gave $5. But I'm proud of the fact that I'm only taking contributions from individuals. I will not take and have not taken a single penny from a lobbyist, a special interest, or a PAC. And the reason that I did that is because it's my intention to represent you, the individuals that are here, not the special interest, not the lobbyist, not the PACs. The reality is that when you accept money from PACs and from lobbyists and from special interest, you owe them. I don't owe anyone. I'm responsible to you. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for you to trust me to represent you. And that's the reason that I have only taken money, again, from, at this point, and it's growing daily, from over 525 individuals. I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. And that will conclude our questioning for our state representatives, candidates for District Number 60. They are John Francis, Christopher Perricone, Glenn Rogers, and Kelly Sorrell. How about a round of applause for each one of your candidates? All right, we will have a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate, and we will start with John Francis.
You know, again, I'm so grateful for all of you to come out in this inclement weather and take the time. I think it's super important. I want to make a couple of points. This district, once again, is one of the most conservative districts in the entire state. It's what makes this place the best place to live. I love living here. My wife and I have been here for more than 20 years. We call it home. And that's part of the reason why that we love it. I'm a solid conservative. I have a track record of working behind the scenes. I've never run for office before. I've never sought public office. This is the first time. This is a new experience for me. But I have been involved, behind the scenes, and part of the reason that I was able to get involved is that I was the director of a charitable foundation that my in-laws set up, and it enabled me to be involved politically. And quite frankly, that's the reason that I was able to get some endorsements from people that I'm extremely proud of. Senator Ted Cruz is one. I've worked with the man personally. He endorsed me because he knows me. He knows what I will stand for, and more importantly, he knows what I won't stand for. I've also received an endorsement, this is the one that I'm most proud of, and that's from Dr. James Dobson. And again, I worked with the man personally. He knows me personally. And when he called me to tell me that he was endorsing me, it was a very humbling moment, and it's very special to me. And again, but the reason is that he knows what my positions are. He knows the intensity with which that I act, because the reality is we have to push back on the left. And I'm so very proud of my family, and I'm proud of the work that I've done personally in order to push back. I can tell you that if you entrust me with your vote, I will go to Austin and I will be a warrior for you and for our values. And so it's for that reason that I'm asking you to support me with your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Perricone.
My name is Christopher Perricone. You can find out more at ChristopherForTexas.com. I need your vote. Like I said, it's about the message and not the money. It's about the message and sending someone that's a smart, effective fighter going down to Austin. It's one thing to have someone that's a fighter and can stand strong, but to be effective and to articulate that argument and to influence others to come to it, that's something different. I believe I'm the best one to represent that. As you look out at the ocean, you look at a glacier, you can only see so much of it. Exponentially underneath that water level, there is 9-10 times the size of that glacier. So when you look at the votes of people, and you can look at my track record, I've got a track record of voting on conservative stands when I'm the only one that's standing firm on conservative principles. You can look at that, but that only shows a small portion of the man or woman you're voting for. The other things that go on politically when we're talking about state office are underneath the surface that you don't see. For example, Lane, which he's done an incredible job as state rep, and I will go to Austin and hopefully continue to carry that same torch. But here in Brown County, when Ranger was trying to annex and do the annexation, you have someone, a state elected official, standing up for y'all saying, wait a second, you know how much taxes that's going to increase for y'all for the rest of your life, basically? And so there was no vote done on that, but your state elected official was involved and got involved in it and was to help push that back. I would be a similar type of strong representative for you down in Austin. Like I said, remember, it's about finding someone that you can verify and look at a track record. Take any of the 5 things, whether it's constitutional carry, which I'm absolutely for. I'm also for national reciprocity. If the Congress does it, build a wall, deal with the incentives, get rid of abortion, Roe v. Wade, which we can do. I believe the government should be done from the lowest levels, from the municipalities up to the higher levels. Every single item on our platform, including lowering taxes and eliminating them, I am firm. I have a track record. Vote for me, Christopher Perricone, ChristopherForTexas.com. I need your vote. I need your support. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers will be our next candidate.
When I was considering running for this office, I was told it would be hard, and it's been a lot harder than anybody told me it would be. But what's been surprising about this is it's also been a lot of fun, and the reason it's been fun is because I've gotten to meet some of the best people on God's earth, salt of the earth people throughout this district. And I started out wanting to run for this office because I had a real passion to serve rural Texas. And every day I meet people that make me want to work that much harder for this district. I truly appreciate Brownwood. I feel like this is a second home to me. I have many, many friends here that I didn't have before I decided to run for this race. And I had somebody early on say, what will be the result if you don't get elected? And I thought, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I just assumed I would. But I'll always have the friends that I've met, not just in Brownwood, but throughout the district. And again, it's about trust and relationships. It's about working hard for people you believe in. And I believe in this district. I believe in the future of our country. And I believe that rural America is what's going to continue to make this country great. I thank you, Brownwood. I thank you, all of you in here that I know personally, and I look forward to meeting many of you in the future. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And now Kelly Sorrell.
I went and did it. I went and wrote my notes like I do in court sometimes, and I can't even read them myself. All right, so I think I'm gonna start here. Okay, so I am a limited government gal. I am really tired of our agencies and unelected bureaucrats taking over our state. Really disappointed with past leaders as far as allowing it to continue to happen. My biggest group that I can point out would probably be like Child Protective Services, although they have a purpose. The ball just keeps getting bigger. I'm also pro local control. I think the government closest to the people is the most effective. I appreciate that you can go down and argue or fight with your county commissioners or your city councilmen or persons. I'm pro-life, but I'm also pro-family, and that means I am a family attorney, so one of my things would try to figure out a way to make sure that both parents are raising the child, not just one. Some of that would just be kind of some shifts in child support and visitation schedules and things like that. I've spent majority of my career up until this point in the bluest county, 13th largest county in the state, and that's in Cameron County. I fought cartel. I fought for kids, and I've also fought corruption with my vote. I will say that I absolutely think that you cannot go wrong with any of the guys that are up here. I think all three of them are pretty amazing, and we've spent some time together, and I really appreciate your vote if you give it my way, but you can't lose. Thank you.
All right, thank you once again to all of our candidates for District Number 60. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your questions. All right, as you can stand while we're trading out with our next group. So stand and stretch you for just a minute, and we will call our